What's going on YouTube? Welcome back to the Cardi Project. I'm glad that you guys can join me today and hopefully you are enjoying your time. So today's topic, I want to talk about something that I talked about on my social media platform the other day. If you're not following me, follow me on TikTok and Instagram. My handle is Mikey's Cart across both. I do a lot of the same topics that I do here, just in a short form content. I also try to add like a digestible takeaway from each of those videos, or I try to do something a little bit more humorous. This is where I really dive in and kind of share some lessons and things that I've learned over my lifetime and things that I'm digesting in real time. But the video and the topic that I was talking about is that just over the time, the past 13 years or so that I've been in quote unquote corporate America, I've just learned so much and I've had so many different faces and had to do so many different things across different industries, right? I was a transportation manager at Amazon, and that was a very fast-paced environment where I was constantly moving and having to adapt and learn on the fly, versus being a logistics manager at Applied Materials, where we're very process-oriented, KPI-driven, and we had metrics that we had to meet. And then I'm currently servicing an enterprise customer at an international shipping company right now, and it's a really great change of pace because I'm really focusing on growing that supply chain with that customer in a partnership and less of a KPI driven environment. But I think across all of those different industries, across all of those different companies, there's some really core things that I learned from my very first job, which is being an Army officer. So today, I want to share some of those key leadership lessons that I learned from my time being in the Army. So my time spent as a leader in the Army was really foundational to just how I view leadership today. And what's really cool about the Army is that we have a phrase or an adage for everything that is learned. So that's easy to pass down and is very digestible. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to share 3 key phrases that I learned while I was in the military, and then really dive into them so that you can understand just why they're foundational in the way that I think as a leader today. So for the first one, the first leadership lesson that I ever learned when I was in the Army, and it sticks to me even to this day, is that as a leader, the buck stops with you. And what that means is that as a leader, I'm accountable for everything that my team does. I think oftentimes people say you're accountable for what your team does and fails to do. And it's true. Everything that happens while you are leading said group or team, it does come back to you. As a leader in the military, you absolutely cannot say, this wasn't my fault, this was so-and-so's fault. Because at the end of the day, your team's performance starts and stops with you as a leader. That's why I think the Army creates so many servant leaders, because what they teach you is that as a leader, your first priority is to remove barriers and create conditions for success within your team. And that's not to say that the Army creates soft leaders, because that's not necessarily what it is. But what they do is we, one, remove barriers so that you can be as successful as possible. We create the conditions for success across the team, and then we give you the resources so that our team can develop into the functioning group that they should be. Because ultimately, what happens at the end of the day is always mission critical in the Army, and you cannot fail as a leader. So remember, the buck starts and stops with you. The second phrase, and I think this one has a really great play on words, is you cannot expect what you don't inspect. Essentially what this means is that your team is going to react to the habits that you set as a leader. So as a leader, you set the tone for your team. And whether you're doing this consciously or not, the routines that you put into place for your team are going to be the things that they routinely complete. Let me put this into context. So in the military, we did something called Motor Pool Mondays. And what I would do as a leader is I would come in, and the first thing that I'm checking on Monday morning is, one, what does your equipment look like? Is it clean? Is it maintained? And then 2, we were checking weapon readiness, right? Are your weapons clean? Do they have all the parts? Are you missing anything? So much so to the point that when I came in on Monday mornings as that platoon leader, my platoon was lined up and ready for me to look at their equipment and had their weapons also on the standby, because they knew that I expected that as a leader, and it was going to be something that I inspected. Bring it over to the corporate side. Let's say that as an organization, what's important for you is that you have good standard operating procedures, and that the invoices that you send to your customers are not only timely, but that they're accurate. As a leader, you can't expect your team to just follow up on that, because they've got other things that are priority to them that they're going to focus on. But if you routinely set the time, let's say at the end of the month, to make sure that you're looking at SOPs and you're looking at the invoices and the data behind those invoices to make sure they're correct, then that sets the routine in your team's head that, hey, at the end of the month, this is going to be something that my leader is going to look for, and they're going to make sure that they have it correct. And if not, you know what to do. But the point that I'm trying to drive to you is that you have to be intentional with your expectations with your team. Because if it's important, you have to schedule it and you have to make sure that you're checking it routinely. And for the last one, this might be something that isn't just privy to the military, but the first place that I heard it was in the military, and it's the 7 Ps, which is prior proper planning prevents piss poor performance. And in a nutshell, what this means is, to the best of your ability, you need to be prepared for everything, every time. So anything that has your name attached to it, every time you and your team walk into a room, every time that you start a new action, you need to set your team up to be as successful as possible. And to be successful, in my mind, it just means that you need to make sure that you keep your instructions and your processes simple. Really, because simplicity creates repeatability. Repeatability reduces and mitigates risk. And the lower the risk that you have, the higher chances that you have for being successful. Example, I had a leader that taught me the importance of using 5S. 5S is just a methodology for how you put everything in its place. It's part of Kaizen. Take some time to look into Six Sigma if you're really interested. And in a nutshell, what that means is that everything has its place. The fire extinguisher goes here, the roadmap goes here, the compass goes there. And the reason why we were so intentional behind doing that is because anytime you need to find or use one of those pieces of equipment, there was time lost trying to look for it, and God forbid you didn't have it during a crucial moment. But by easily seeing where everything should go, you can easily recognize that something was missing, and when you did need it, you can easily access it and keep your mind focused on the task at hand. So, prior proper planning prevents piss poor performance. Just be ready for every situation to the best of your ability. Those are some foundational leadership lessons that I learned while I was in the military. But I'd love to hear from you. What were some of the things that you learned in your early leadership journey? Send it in the comments below. And also remember to follow me on my social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok, at Mikey's Cart, where I have more conversations like this, but just in a short form. And I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.